with which this readout was published. Now,
Rachel,
go, Jay. Just go. What is happening?
Sorry.
these people are dumb.
Pause anything on YouTube, you get an advertisement.
Now, a few further things. At the Munich Security Conference, there was a huge amount of talk, a lot of discussion about a Chinese peace plan for resolving the situation in Ukraine. And the Chinese media have now started to talk about the fact that the Chinese do have ideas and it might amount to a peace plan, but they've been very vague about this. Lavrov and the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman, Zakharova, have come out on record and said that if there is a Chinese peace plan for the conflict in Ukraine, Wang Yi didn't bring it with him when he came to Moscow. So they don't know about any Chinese peace plan, but they did discuss, there have been discussions about the situation in Ukraine, and the Russians overall are pleased, are grateful with what they see as Chinese understanding of the problems with respect to Ukraine. And in fact, the Russian Foreign Ministry has published a brief press statement, not exactly a readout, about the discussions that took place between Wang Yi and Lavrov. And it says, it includes this paragraph: Wang Yi expressed the Chinese side's vision of the root causes of the Ukraine crisis, as well as China's approaches to a political settlement. Sergei Lavrov commended Beijing's constructive policy and reaffirmed the high level of proximity of our assessments of this agenda. Now, note that this Russian readout talks about the Chinese side's vision of the root causes of the Ukraine crisis. And this is where it becomes very interesting, because over the last 2 days, the Chinese have published 2 position papers. In fact, if you go to the Chinese Foreign Ministry website, there's been a whole series of Chinese position papers, each one following upon the other. And some of them are on really rather odd topics. One is on the situation with gun control in the United States. Another is on the situation with, the drugs crisis in the United States. I can't really see why the Chinese Foreign Ministry would be involving itself in these sort of topics, but in fact the answer becomes fairly clear before long, because what the Chinese are now doing is that they are preparing a major assault, an intellectual assault on the whole direction of US foreign policy. And they've now published a gigantic document which has the title US Hegemony and Its Perils. And I'm not going to read the entire document, that would take far too long, but one can get a sense of its overall flavour from its opening paragraph, its opening section, its introduction. Since becoming the world's most powerful country after the 2 world wars and the Cold War, the United States has acted more boldly to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries, pursue, maintain and abuse hegemony, advance subversion and infiltration, and willfully wage wars, bringing harm to the international community. The United States has developed a hegemonic playbook to stage colour revolutions, instigate regional disputes, and even directly launch wars under the guise of promoting democracy, freedom and human rights. Clinging to the Cold War mentality, the United States has ramped up bloc politics and stoked conflict and confrontation. It has overstretched the concept of national security, abused export controls, and forced unilateral sanctions upon others. It has taken a selective approach to international law and rules, utilizing or discarding them as it sees fit, and has sought to impose rules that serve its own interests in the name of upholding a rules-based international order. Those words, rules-based international order, being written within inverted commas. And then he says, this report, by presenting the relevant facts, seeks to expose the US abuse of hegemony in the political, military, economic, financial, technological and cultural fields, and draws greater international attention to the perils of US practices to world peace and stability and the well-being of all peoples. And then we have a whole series of subsections. The first deals principally with the US seeking to promote colour revolutions and putting economic pressure upon various countries and its willful disregard of international law and its creation of blocs. The second section deals with the US use of force, the fact that the US has used force more than almost any other country in recent years, and there is, quotes Jimmy Carter as saying that it's the most warlike nation in history. By the way, at some point, I think in this section of this report, the report actually quotes Julian Assange as well, which is, I'm going to guess, something of a red rag to the bull in terms of the United States. It then discusses US economic policies and how these relate to the rest of the world, and you can get a flavour of its contents from the title: Economic Hegemony, Looting and Exploitation. And there's a lot here about the US's abuse of the reserve currency position of the dollar. And then there's technological hegemony, the way the United States tries to prevent technological development in other countries. And here, of course, China is specifically referenced, but a historical example is given in relation to Japan in the 1980s about how the United States tries to obstruct the technological development of other countries so that it can preserve its own technological supremacy. And then there is a long section on cultural hegemony, spreading false narratives, which, by the way, is not just about the media, the way in which the United States uses its media and its social media, but it also addresses US cultural exports such as films and such things. And all of this, supposedly, well, according to the Chinese, part of an American policy to maintain.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't know how to tell my family, but I was ready to fight.
Sorry, every 2 seconds in the video on YouTube has a commercial these days.
To maintain overall US strategic and global dominance. And the Chinese, simultaneously with that document, have provided their own manifesto on how foreign policy should be.
All right, so that's Alexander Makarov on the Duran. I wanted him to read the Chinese statement because now we're seeing world hegemony against the West and the United States coming together, and that's why I wanted you to hear that statement. and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Right now, India is still neutral, but there is rumors that they may join with China and Russia in a in a minor fashion against the West, at least on a financial and trade basis. I don't think that they're going to enter into an alliance. Let's put it that way. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's just go through the numbers here. And by the way, I will never refer to it as the Biden administration. From this point forward, I will refer to it as the Obama administration. So while the Obama administration is giving billions to Ukraine, I assume you follow the news. Trump he pulled a political coup and visited Palestine, Ohio, where he gave away some food and water and visited the McDonald's. If you're completely oblivious to the news, you might not have seen that. I'm sure it probably was not covered on mainstream media. It's unfortunate. I can only go around the channels so much. So I imagine if you watch MSDNC or CNN or CBS or ABC, you would never even know that Trump visited Ohio. And while Biden was in Ukraine. Now, think about the significance of that. Biden spent President's Day in Ukraine, giving them $500 million more American taxpayer dollars. Oh my God. We're going to get into that story towards the end of the video. We're seeing a lot of news around the media right now that the U.S. is worried about China giving Russia ammo and munitions because Russia is supposedly running out. Everything I'm seeing in the Russian media and Chinese media says no. Russia says it's got plenty of ammo. It doesn't need anything from China. Just trade. They're working on trade agreements, and we'll get into that in a moment. It's huge what they're working out. I mean, we have driven China and Russia into an alliance almost. They haven't announced an alliance, but it looks pretty damn close to me. This was an interesting story, and then it kind of progressed over the day, and I was going to report on it, but I might as well report on the beginning of it and then the end of it. So the Wagner, Prigozhin, Yevgeny Prigozhin. I practiced pronouncing that, and I still can't do it. He was in dispute with the Russian Defense Ministry over the ammo that the Wagner Group was being provided, the mercenaries. And man, oh man, I mean, it got heated. And he said they needed ammo and trench digging tools. And then he went so far, Yevgeny, he put up a graphic picture of, he gathered together a bunch of dead Wagner soldiers and put them in an area and made a picture of it and posted it on public media. Luckily it was blurred out. I didn't have to see the dead bodies, but I mean, he made his point. And so at least on paper right now, they're going to get their ammo and I guess their trench digging tools. I didn't hear that they get the trench digging tools, but boy, that was a hell of a row between him and the Russian Defense Ministry. It was very interesting to watch it take place today. Not the picture of the dead bodies, but I guess he was trying to drive home exactly what the lack of ammo was doing. And he said if he'd had the ammo, they wouldn't have died. That was his point. I tell you what, man, watching the mainstream media, these people just lie and gaslight on everything. So I was watching, people talking about it today. This Andrea Mitchell, I don't forget which damn network she works for. She was saying that here in Florida that DeSantis has banned books on slavery and it's not being taught in Florida schools. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. We banned there was a course that was going to go through the schools here in Florida, and it had a left-leaning taint. It was going to talk about critical race theory and in relation to slavery and everything else. No, we haven't banned anything. Just that one course that was a woke takeover of our schools. Okay, there were rumors today that Bakhova had fallen. And then it came out that it hadn't fallen, but that it will fall. And that's from Yevgeny, damn it, how do you pronounce his last name? anyway, the leader of the Wagner Group, because when he usually makes announcements, it's after the fact. Everything is all a done deal because he likes to I don't know. I mean, you want your soldiers to get credit for what they've done. A lot of them, some of them died. So anyway, the Wang Yi, head of the President Xi, who's going to be visiting Russia here shortly, they've negotiated an $800 billion trade agreement. Well, they're hoping to achieve $800 billion by 2024 between Russia and China. So we can see that that alliance is being formed, and we'll see what happens there. I already talked about the $500 million in additional aid into Ukraine on President's Day, and this was an interesting story from Black and White Sports TV. I didn't know this. The Georgia Bulldogs have won the college championship, if you want to look at it as that, 2 years in a row now. And in fact, this year I didn't realize they crushed I didn't watch the game, but they crushed them 67-7, and they didn't get invited to the White House. Usually the White House will invite a big winner like this, so whether it's the Super Bowl champions or the Major League champions or whatever, and so some of the Georgia Bulldogs pointed this out on Twitter and called Biden Beijing Biden and put it in their tweets. I'm sorry, I just thought they called him Beijing Biden. Beijing Biden didn't invite us to the White House. Boy, they are pissed off. Oh my God, if you put that in a tweet. So that was pretty cool. I tell you what, Biden, the Obama administration, but the Biden puppet that they've got in charge, he's not getting much respect from anybody these days. Another interesting story, this was from Dr. Steve Turley today, was that we knew we had militias at the border trying to stem the flow of illegal aliens that the warmongering Democrats want to cross our border. But now, according to him, now, I'm just quoting the news, he says they've crossed over into Mexico and that they are fighting the cartels there to keep the illegal aliens from crossing into the United States. And so I do think more and more that that's what we're going to have to do as a nation. As our federal government abandons us and gives all of our tax money to Ukraine, we're going to have to more and more step up to the plate. And that's what I'm trying to get veterans to do, to make sure that our National Guard is not deployed by the warmongering Diablos, the warmongering Democrats and the Diablos in our federal government, unless there's a vote by the Congress. So I'm working on that. It was funny because I guess, was it yesterday? Yeah, I got a video, and I got another video tonight I'm going to put up because it's a Putin video. So if you hate Putin, you're probably not going to want to watch that one. But he attended a huge rally at the Defender of the Fatherland Day in the Olympic arena that they built way back, and it was wild to watch it. And I was like, man, oh man. And you form your own opinion when you watch the video. I'm not going to say anything about it. Everybody says I'm pro-Russia. I'm not pro anything. I'm just I'm anti-war. That's it. I'm anti-war. This was something that I want to predict. So tomorrow is the anniversary. So we had all this Fatherland Day stuff. And by the way, think about the symbolism of when Russia invaded Ukraine. It was really just after Fatherland Day. So Russia wanted to celebrate Defender of the Fatherland Day before they invaded Ukraine. That was last year. So what do you think they're going to do this year? And rumors are that they've prepared one hell of a missile barrage on Ukraine set for tomorrow. So I guess we'll see what happens. Now, if you've been following along, they've been launching missile barrages, and some of them are pretty damn elaborate. So if they're gonna go beyond that, Ukraine, hold on to your bootstraps. You're about to get hit hard on February 24th. So we'll see what happens. There was a poll that came out in Russia that, and I swear, when I watched Putin's speech, good Lord, I wanted to travel to Russia, you know, apply for citizenship. I mean, he was that good in the speech, in my opinion. It was just a great speech. And so they did a poll, and I was surprised the number was this low, but they said only 78% of the Russians who watched Putin considered his speech sincere, which is still a pretty high number. I mean, how many Americans thought that Biden's speech to the Union, the State of the Union, was sincere? I would love to know that number. I don't think any news agency on the planet is going to take that number, at least not in our mainstream media, that's for sure. Well, Moldova and Transnistria, I didn't realize there's this huge ammo dump in Transnistria, and of course these are places, you know, I'm learning as you do. I'm like, who the hell is Transnistria? I guess it's a small country next to Ukraine, and they still got a bunch of old Soviet munitions in this big ammo dump, and the Ukrainians are eyeballing it, and Russia's saying they're not going to let them have it, and so Russia's saying that Ukraine's trying to stage a put a bunch of their troops in Russian uniforms and say that Russia had invaded to make it look like it so they can get to this ammo dump. I don't know. It's a crazy story, but and of course we know Moldova, that the prime minister there is out of her mind. What she was saying, and I reported on that in a different video, which, you know, she's talking about how, you know, they need to go to war with Russia. Good luck. That little teeny country would, you know, one artillery salvo and they'd be blown off the face of the earth. This is a cool story. I thought this was pretty funny. There's a company in Czechoslovakia that's providing inflatable balloons to Ukraine that look like NATO equipment. So you've got an inflatable HIMARS balloon that well, you know what? It's kind of ingenious when you remember back to World War II when the Western nations, you know, had Patton down. I want to say, where was it that he was at? Italy, or anyway, it was a fake invasion, and they put a bunch of you know, wooden equipment and stuff, but, you know, back then the technology, you know, you couldn't really tell that it wasn't real, and so the Germans had to commit a certain number of their forces to protect against a possible invasion from the south, you know, when the real invasion came in from Normandy. And so it's kind of the same thing. I can see the wisdom of having these inflatable HIMARS balloons to try to, you know, make Russia expend some munitions onto a balloon rather. And then they said that the Ukrainians are going so far as to sprinkling the munitions or spent rounds around these balloons to make it look like they've been firing. I don't know how effective it is. I just thought it was a cool story. There's another tidbit floating around that the Wagner Group has captured Barkhivka, Berkhiuka, Barkhivka. I didn't write down where that was, but so that's another stake in the coffin. And for you Ukrainian lovers, the Ukrainians did do a counteroffensive up in the north, and it was somewhat successful from what I understand, and they pushed the Russians back. So boy, this is new to YouTube. I just saw a video from Peak Prosperity, and they were talking about that I guess YouTube is restricting or is loosening its restrictions on reporting about the jab. Now, I'm not going to do it on my channel. You can watch that video. So you do seem to be able to talk about it more now. So whatever. I think that's a good thing. What was it he said? I can't remember. I didn't write it down. Boy, I tell you, if I don't write it down, I can't talk about it. Oh, yeah, he was talking about the interview with the, I think wasn't it the Buffalo Bills, that football player that had the cardiac arrest? Anyway, he was in an interview, and they asked him, they said, well, what was the cause of your cardiac arrest? What have the doctors said? And he just paused for like 10 seconds and said, I can't talk about it. Well, make of that what you will. And so that's all that I'll say about that. So that's it for my notes. So I had a comment, and daggone it, I searched, I swear, my comments disappear off of my channel, or my YouTube channel, because I went up and I looked at the comments again, And I'm sorry, I do try to reply to your comments, but I think YouTube deletes some of the comments that you make on my videos. Maybe it's because I'm persona non grata on YouTube for sure. But the comment went something like, you know, Ukraine has a right to defend itself. It has a right to fight for freedom, blah, blah, blah. You know, you Putin-loving asshole or something like that, you know. And I wanted to respond to it because this person was incredibly ignorant. And I'm not trying, I love all comments, so keep them coming. I like the, because it gives me a chance to talk about things. So I wanted to paint a picture for this person. Okay, so let's pretend, let's flip the shoe onto the other foot, because he was commenting on Putin's speech about why Russia invaded Ukraine. So let's just flip that scenario and paint a picture for you. So let's say that the Russian Federation did a now let's pretend right now the Mexican government, they're not our friend. They're just an acquaintance, or they're not even an adversary. They're just a neighbor. Okay, so and that's kind of what Russia had in Ukraine. Although the government that was in Ukraine in 2014 was, well, you want to say pro-Russian. I don't think they were like, you know, totally committed. In fact, back then they wanted to work with the West. They were somewhat neutral, although I think they were a little bit more pro-Russian than they were Western. And then there was this violent coup. And if you watch my video from yesterday, I show you the clips from, I think it was NBC, where they showed the violence that was going on during the transition to the pro-Western government. And, you know, rumors are, or evidence has come out, and you can do your own research, that the CIA staged a coup in Ukraine to put in this pro-Western government. Now, that wasn't Zelensky back then. That was a different guy, and then Zelensky eventually took over. And so imagine you're the United States, you're U.S., you're the CIA, the FBI, or whatever, the Obama administration, and you're watching this violent coup taking place in Mexico, and then all of a sudden there's an administration in Mexico, or a government that's pro-Russian Federation. You'd be like, well, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here, man? I mean, but yet you don't do anything about it. Now, also picture northern Mexico. Let's say that is an English-speaking area that's that throughout history had previously been part of the United States, but with the breakup of the United States, let's just pretend, which might happen, they became part of Mexico somewhat. And so, you know, there was this agreement that you entered in with this now pro-Russian Federation government, and you said, look, you know, leave the English-speaking territories alone. We want to remain friends with them. We want to trade with them. We're not going to make them part of the United States, but, you know, we don't want you, you know, basically bombing them or going in there and hurting them in any way. Well, then, you know, so what happens? So now the Russian Federation, they say, oh, yeah, no problem, man. We won't do anything. You know, in fact, you know, gloves off. You know, you guys, we're just, we're all friends here. We're all friends here. So then, you know, all of a sudden these ships start coming across the Atlantic, and they're filled with weapons, and they're offloading them onto the docks and giving them to the Mexicans. You know, and this new Mexican government. And then another ship arrives, and they give them more weapons. And this goes on for years, from 2014 to 2021. And the next thing you know, the Mexicans are armed to the freaking teeth. I mean, my God, they got thousands of millions of rounds of ammunition, artillery. They've got everything known to mankind. Plus, they have the old weapons from when the United States broke up, and they've got all of those weapons. And so then they start bombing these English-speaking areas that are right next to the United States. And of course, they separate. They become revolutionaries, and they start fighting Mexico. And they're over there, and we as the United States are horrified watching this thing take place. And so what do? We start giving the English-speaking part of Mexico, we're giving them weapons, we're giving them help, we're probably sending in mercenaries to try to help them out, you know, doing the best we can, but the thing just keeps escalating and escalating. So finally there's this buildup of Mexicans with all of this Russian Federation hardware, and they are just going to roll over the English-speaking part of Mexico. Now what do you do? What do you do at this point? Because this brings all of the weapons, everything right up to the U.S. border. Okay, and then there's also the Russian Federation alliance. So, you know, and the Russian Federation starts shouting out, you know, we're going to make Mexico part of the Russian Federation. Well, no, we as the United States, we don't want that. We can't have them be part of the Russian Federation. We're not going to tolerate that. So, you go to war. It's good to live in the free Republican state of Florida. And stay tuned for my next video. I've already got it exactly what I'm going to put out. And I guess it's great to live under the great leadership of Governor DeSanctimonious.